Alright, people. Review of the week time. So, a lot of fights took place over the weekend. A lot of fights. Let's start. I've already done a review of this fight. I'm not going to touch on it too much. In fact, I might actually leave this one till the end. Because it will sashay nicely into the next topic. Let's talk about. Now, I didn't see this card. I only seen the highlights, especially Yunta Nakatani. I was looking forward to seeing him. Card happened on Saturday morning over in Japan. And this card right here, I mean, they really do. They don't play around over there. They really don't. I mean, this has a couple of world title fights on it. Some big punchers, some big names. Kosei Tatanka got the win. Now, I remember him a couple of years ago, and I think that's his third or fourth different weight division. And I know at those weight divisions, you're only separated by a couple of pounds, but they are extremely talented fighters in those divisions. So he's now the WBO super flyweight champion. Takuma Inoue, who was the younger brother of Naoya Inoue, he was the main event. He actually retained his WBA bantamweight world title against Yerwin and Katas. That was by a 9th round KO. Now, Gerwin and Katas, he's only 32 years old, but in those respective weight divisions, they tend to age fairly quickly. And I remember seeing him. It was the Israel Gonzalez fight. He looked good. Remember, he beat the living crap out of Jamie Connell. I think that was in Belfast. Because he was with Top Rank for a while. He was fighting on a couple of Top Rank shows. And I remember he was doing quite well. He had that draw with Alexandro Santiago, who actually, I believe that's the Santiago who, it is the same one who beat Nonito Donaire. He also fought on this card. I'll talk about him now in a wee sec. Then he had these two losses against Fernando Daniel Martinez. And I hadn't really heard much from him since then. So when I saw his name on this card, I was like, oh God, Gurin Yakatas, I think they say the name, he could be either on the slide or he could be, those two losses could be an anomaly. Now, and Takuma Inoue is not a known puncher either. I mean, he's 19-1 with 5 knockouts. His sole loss came against Nordine Obale. That was on the undercard of Naoya Inoue versus Nonito Donaire 1. I remember watching that fight. Actually, it was on a Thursday, and I remember he could, you see the scorecards there. One of them had it 121-07. He got completely outclassed in that fight. He's definitely not as talented as his older brother, but nevertheless he was able to pick up a world title anyway. And then obviously you had Alexandro Santiago coming off a recent win over Nonito Donaire, defended his WBC World Bantamweight title against Junta Nakatani. Need I say more? He is one of the most entertaining fighters in the sport of boxing. He is now a 3-division world champion, flyweight, superfly, and of course, now a bantam. A KO he got over Andrew Maloney. A lot of people made that their KO of 2023. I can't really argue with that. I mean, this guy he's another Inoue. He's just another Inoue. His power just seems to translate even as he goes up the divisions. Now, I don't think he's quite the puncher in terms of just pound for pound that Inoue, because Inoue is just, it's insane. But Yunta Nakatani is something else. Those cards they do in Japan, it's very actually rare they do them on a Saturday, to be honest, which is normally during the week they do them, which can be a bit of a pain if you're in work and stuff like that. But yeah, they don't play around on those cards. I mean, you are seeing competitive fights, good fights, and Japan is one of those countries, certainly I've found from watching shows there, that they are fair. They're a lot more fair when it comes to scorecards, officials, than you would get, let's say, in the UK, the US, or certainly a lot of countries in Europe. It seems that there's a lot more, if a fight is genuinely close, the right guy normally gets it. If it's close, nip and tuck, it could go either way. But you don't see a close fight. 118, 110. You're like, what? You don't tend to see that as much in Japan. Certainly not. I also seen in the UK, Jay Harris got a win over a guy, I think was it Tommy Connor or something his name was. I watched the end of that fight, was on the Zone, and Jay Harris regains his European title, British and Commonwealth. Jay Harris gave a very good account of himself against Martinez 4 years ago, I think it was. And then his career kind of dwindled a little bit. He actually went down to 108, which, he looked absolutely horrific on the scale. I remember that fight. He lost that fight because he just looked horrific. He's gone back to flyweight. He's gone back to domestic level. He's looking a bit better. There is talk that maybe we could finally see him against Sonny Edwards. Now, Back in the day, the two of them, would you call it a beef, a rivalry, but they were talked about a lot. And, Sonny Edwards is coming off the back of a loss to Bam Rodriguez. He's trying to rebuild himself. That's a domestic clash. There's nothing wrong with fighting for a world title and then maybe going fighting Jay Harris for European honours. There's not really anything wrong with that, I don't think. And that would be a decent fight. I'd make Sonny Edwards favourite. I think he's a lot fresher. You see, Jay Harris is 34 years old. So he's young, but he's not young for a flyweight. I mean, they are, it's mad, right? You look at a heavyweight and you say he's 34, he's loads of time. Heavyweights don't tend to mature till that age. Yeah, flyweights are pretty much done by that age. I mean, it's very seldom you see flyweights go past the age of really, like, say, 32, 33. You don't tend to see that as much. And Jay Harris, he's not as defensively minded as a Sonny Edwards. So he's taking a lot more shots. So I would be making Edwards favourite if they made that fight. But you never know, Jay Harris. How much is that fight with Bam Rodriguez taken out of Bam Rodriguez? How much is that taken out of Sonny Edwards? Because, listen, he took his fight. He took the beating like a man. You can't say that about him. But he definitely took a lot of punishment in that fight. An awful lot. In terms of the other DAZN card that was on last night, the one over in America, I've only seen the main event, which I've already talked about. Did a review of that, but Edgar Berlanga against Patrick McCroy. Berlanga winning in 6 rounds. Like I said, it's the first time I've looked at Berlanga in a while, really, and thought, okay, you looked all right. You looked all right. It's easy to look good when you're fighting absolute cream puffs like he was for his first 16 fights. You move the levels up, and he hasn't looked as good. He didn't look as good against that Damon Nicholson guy. He got that win on that night. I think he dropped him a couple of times. He really didn't look good on the undercard of Wilder Fury 3. I thought he lost that fight. And then he's just kind of like, against Jay Quigley and the likes, especially the Jay Quigley fight, I was like, that's an easy win. Well, fundamentally it was an easy win. But it was like Jay Quigley won rounds and he survived, and Jay Quigley is not exactly durable. And I was like, that to me was just a bit of a worry, a bit of a red flag. And in this fight here with Berlanga, I'm not expecting miracles out of Berlanga moving forward, but it is maybe a step in the right direction. Now, Eddie Hearn has obviously said that they'd like to do Canelo. Canelo reportedly stated that the contenders queuing up to face him should face each other to earn a shot, like an eliminator. Good win for Berlanga overnight, stopping McCroy, but only David Benavidez truly fulfilled the criteria with his last 2 wins. So fighting them. In terms of opponents for Canelo, it's looking like Charlo, Munguia, Berlanga, Benavidez and Crawford. We can rule out Crawford. We maybe can rule out Charlo. We maybe can rule out Munguia, maybe, if he's not going to fight another Mexican. That does leave Benavidez and Berlanga. And, Benavidez has talked about moving up, but, he's talked about moving up, fighting Vodcek to get a crack at the winner of Beterbiev Bivol. But I'm sure if the Canelo fight is there and available, he may look elsewhere, or he may look at just fighting Canelo. Now, I actually think I seen where it was here. Yeah. So his promoter, Samson Lowatsky, I think is how you say that guy's name, has said that Benavidez would be willing to come back down to super middleweight in September. Oh, really? After moving up to light heavyweight. Oh, so he still intends to go through with that fight. Interesting. So he intends to move up to light heavyweight to fight Vodcek regardless, and then fight Canelo in September, which would mean then he's mandatory for the WBC in 2 weights. That's interesting. Do you know what, right? I like the fact he's thinking of moving up to fight Vodcek. He's not waiting around. And if he does get the Canelo fight in September, I would be a bit worried. I would be a little bit worried about that. I'll tell you why. Because when you have a fighter like Benavidez, who's huge. I mean, this guy is he's not even going to be a small light heavyweight. He's going to be big at light heavyweight as well. It's going to be a big lump of a light heavyweight. Going to light heavy and then come back down to super middle. Oh, I'd worry a bit about that. I'd worry a bit about that if he fought Canelo, going up to light heavy and then having to drain himself again to get back down to super middle. I would worry a little bit about that. But him against Vodcek in the month of June, I think it's a good fight. I do. The question is, and as I keep saying, what will Canelo do? Personally for me, I don't want to see him fight Charlo. I would love to see him fight. Dave Morrell's name is not getting mentioned. Obviously, Dave Morrell's very good. They're mentioning Terence Crawford, but I don't think that's going to happen. Listen, I would love to see Canelo Benavidez at some point. As I've said, I'd take the Munguia fight. If Benavidez is going to fight Vod second this summer, which does kind of rule him out of the May date, I would take the Munguia fight at this point. Or Dave Morrell. Guys there at 168 who are, knocking at the door trying to get the shot. Yeah, with regards to someone like a Charlo, I don't want to see that. I've seen Canelo against one Charlo, and I'm pretty sure I know how it'll go if he fights the other Charlo, to be honest with you. So I'm not exactly compelled for that fight. When I look at some of the other names there, as I just have a quick check back up here, Berlanga, lamb to the slaughter. Right, I think that's what it would be. It'd be a lamb to the slaughter. I really, really do. Joseph Parker has revealed that the Zhilei Zhang fight on March the 8th has a rematch clause, lovely, giving Zhang the option to force the second fight if he loses because he holds the WBO interim title and the WBO mandatory position for the winner of Fury Usyk. Always with the rematches, huh? Always. I mean, Zhilei Zhang had to sign a rematch clause for the Joe Joyce fight, and he obviously gave Joe Joyce the rematch, beat Joe Joyce again, and now it's the same with Parker versus Zhang. Yeah, look, I understand rematches for voluntaries. I do. But it seems like they're just being so overused these days. It really does. In terms of Zhang versus Joseph Parker, listen, I've already said my thoughts on this fight. I've already given my thoughts on the card. We are not far away. It's not this Friday, the following Friday. We have AJ versus Ngannou. And as I said, the closer we're getting to it, the more I'm looking forward to it. It's a tremendous card. You've Nicky Ball versus Ray Vargas. The Joshua Ngannou fight, I'm getting more intrigued. And I think this fight right here, nearly dropped the phone there. This fight right here, Parker against Zhang. It's a great fight. Honestly, it is a brilliant fight. I'm a bit on the fence with it. I'm not gonna lie. I look at Parker and I just think, if his feet are fast enough to get away from Zhang, not engage, use his quicker hands, because the speed difference between Zhang and Parker it's massive. I don't know. It's a good fight. It's a really, really interesting fight. It's a really tricky fight for me to look at and say, I think this or I think that. It's a really tricky one. So I'm on the fence at the minute. Obviously, I will have to do a pick on it, and of course, I will give a pick on it. I don't like just saying, sit on the fence. I try and always give a pick on it, but yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one. In terms of Joshua versus Ngannou, as I said, I'm getting more into the fight. I thought the face-off they did that the Zone showed this week was very good. It was obviously filmed pre-Fury Usyk pullout and rescheduled, so I think at the time when they were talking about it, they were obviously, Joshua talked about, titles following on from this if he wins, and saying that's probably why it's such an important fight. Obviously at the time he would have assumed that if he'd beaten him he would have got a title shot. He was going to have to wait, and God knows what's going to happen there with Fury Usyk. But I definitely got the sense just watching that face-off, I said it before, I'll say it again, that Joshua seemed a lot more confident than himself. Ngannou himself seemed very confident. They both seemed like confidence isn't going to be an issue for both guys. Both guys seem to just ooze that, certainly in the face-off. Now, may come fight night, bell rings, someone gets hit with a big shot, be it Joshua or Ngannou, and as Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So we may see a change on fight night, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be interesting to weigh in to see what both guys weigh. You're envisioning Ngannou in the 270s, which I expect he will be. But what would Joshua think? Because here's the thing about Joshua, right? When he was facing the guys like Takam in the mid-250s, I thought that was the wrong weight. And I still do think it's the wrong weight. He lost that weight going into the Ruiz fight, and he maintained the low 240s, and I thought he was looking all right. He had a bit more mobility to him, and even then 240 I think in the 230s is ideal for Joshua. He loses twice to Usyk and people are like, put the weight back on. It's like it's one extreme to another with boxing fans, isn't there's never any kind of like a middle ground or anything. Oh, you're too light, put the weight on. Oh, you're too heavy, take the weight off. Oh, you're too... it's no. Sometimes, right, you find your ideal weight and you kind of know what your ideal weight is. You start going and packing it on unnecessarily and going overboard, you're just going to have problems. You know, you look at Joe Joy Zilly Zhang. You know, it wasn't the weight. I don't think that caused the issue. It was just Zhang, just Joe Joyce not respecting Zhang and Zhang being able to find Joe Joyce. He weighed 250 something for the first fight. People are like, oh, he's too light, he needs to be heavier, All right, and I see him at the press conference. I'm like, he is massive. He's a big guy. I was like, he's in the 280s. Oh, yeah, shock horror, he's in the 280s. I was like, oh, he's going to be terrible. He's going to be sluggish. He's not going to be able to move. Lo and behold, he wasn't able to move. He got stopped quicker. So, yeah, the weight was a real big... people are hype too much about the weight. With Joshua, I'm going to be interested to know what he's going to weigh, because I'm thinking if he comes in too heavy and this fight is fought at a fast pace, 10 rounds too heavy, because maybe he's thinking I need to be the stronger of the two, and if he's 270 something and he's stronger than me, I need to be maybe 260. So I'm just, again, it's just speculation. Maybe I need to be heavier. I think that's a big mistake for Joshua, because again, if it is a 10 rounder and say Ngannou does set the pace high, that could have a problem there. Could have a big problem there. Josh Taylor versus Jack Catch rematch. Tickets have now sold out on the first day. Matchroom have announced the fight will be taking place in front of 13,000 fans in Leeds on April 27th. Yeah, I have to say, I am more intrigued in this fight than I originally was. Seeing both guys at the press conference, seeing both guys, there's a lot of needle there between both guys. I am more hyped for this fight, I have to say now, I am. It's going to be interesting to see come April how they look in the ring, how they go. Had this fight been at a full 147, I'd be picking Josh Taylor to win. I think he outgrew that weight years ago. The fact he's still sticking around at 147, I don't know. I personally am just like, no, I don't think that's a particularly good idea. Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin is reportedly now agreed to take place for Tank's WBA lightweight world title in late spring, early summer, according to Mike Coppinger. All right, let's have an old look-see at that. Frank Martin is quite talented. I think Tank Davis should win, but nevertheless, he is a very, very, very talented fighter, is Frank Martin. That should be an interesting fight. Arslan Gulamarian versus Zurdo Ramirez, March 30th, California, on the Zone. All right, let's have a look-see. Zurdo at 200 pounds now. I mean, only a couple of years ago he was at 168. How he ever made that weight, I'll never know. Honestly, I'll never know. Juan Francisco Estrada versus Bam Rodriguez. Talks are reportedly in progress for a potential clash at Superfly in the month of June or July. Love the fight. Absolutely love the fight. I think Bam is a star. If he's not already, he's going to be a star. Eddie Hearn needs to lock him in, because he is going to be a star. And they obviously announced I've already talked about the UK pay-per-view price for Joshua Ngannou with the Zone. They're giving the subscribers a discount of £1. Yes, £1. £1. Yeah, that was my thoughts on that. Let's have an old look-see and see what is on Boxing Scene. Ennis happy with Cruz but rules out bouts for Ben. Oh, Boise Ennis rules out bouts for Ben. Wonder why, because bouts would absolutely lift Conor Ben off the ground. Is he gonna? Isn't Pitbull? Oh, wait, yeah, is that Pitbull he's talking about in terms of Cruz? I would imagine it's Pitbull. All right, let's have a. Pitbull's fighting Rowley. He's gonna beat the living crap out of Rowley. What are we on here? Berlanga world title fight. Fire with fire in the ultimate challenge against Canelo. Yeah. I wouldn't be. Yeah, obviously Eddie Hearn's the promoter. He's going to obviously pick his guy to beat Canelo, but does he really genuinely believe that Berlanga can beat Canelo? I certainly don't. I just like the lamb to the slaughter. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Let's have a look-see. Zelfa Barrett promises to have all the answers against Jordan Gill. Yeah, that's a decent fight. Zelfa Barrett versus Jordan Gill. It's a decent-ish fight. Gill surprised me. He really surprised me against Conlon. You know, I couldn't believe it, quite frankly, that he had so much left. I really couldn't. And, you know, I would have thought Gill just seemed to have had the slightly more punishing career. I know Conlon had been knocked out bad twice, but Gill had been beaten up but come from the brink of defeat to win by knockout in fights and then be beaten by the likes of Kiko Martinez, who we have massive respect for. But Kiko was at the end. It's crazy to think how much he has left. It really is. It's just not a great deal. Subra Mateus promises to knock out and retire Lopez, says Haney runs like a chicken. Yeah, I seen Mateus. That was his first kind of interview slash kind of whatever you want to call it with the zone. He obviously was speaking in Spanish. It was being interpreted. Yeah, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Mateus to the zone, great move for Eddie Hearn. He's mentioned Liam Paro, but other names as well, so let's see what way he goes with Subra Mateus. I assume he's looking to see what happens with Haney. And he's obviously trying to look and do a unification between Mateus. So he may look to just give Mateus maybe an easy fight. You know, Mateus just seems to take on undefeated guy after undefeated guy. Maybe he's going to look to give him just an easy fight, just to assure that he can get these two going. Or, well, obviously he's hoping that Ryan Garcia winning wouldn't be devastating because he is with Golden Boy, so they will be both on the zone. So I'm sure Eddie Hearn would prefer, obviously, his guy to win, but I'm sure it wouldn't be the worst news in the world if it was Ryan Garcia, because obviously he's on the zone as well. What else do we have? There's not a lot really here on boxing scene. There really genuinely isn't. And there hasn't been a great deal over the last couple of days to really get into and discuss in the boxing world, so to speak. It's mainly been kind of Canelo. What's he going to do? Is he going to fight Benavidez, Taylor Catterall, Joshua Ngannou? And I think this week with Joshua Ngannou is going to be fun because I'm going to do a couple of kind of like keys to victory video. I'm probably going to record them tomorrow evening, or maybe kind of do one tomorrow evening, do one Tuesday evening, and obviously keep up with whatever news is happening. So that's really kind of what's been going on. In terms of everything else, like I said, it's, you know, there's been enough news just to get by, but it's not really been much. But there is a lot of boxing coming up. You know, obviously we have the Sauerland show. I'm not sure, is that on channel, I think it's on channel 5, that show in Telford, which actually has Sam Egerton main eventing for the European title. And Sam Egerton, as we know, always good to watch. We've obviously got the Jake Paul show on Saturday night. I think that's taking place in Puerto Rico. So I'll keep an eye out for that one. I think that's on the zone as well. What else do we have? I'm probably missing and forgetting cards. I know that coming up in the month of March, it's a busy month. So we obviously have Joshua versus Ngannou next week. The following week, we would have the Joe Joyce Cash Ali fight. I know that's not the main event, but it's the fight many of us will be looking out for. So yeah, we've a lot coming up over the next couple of weeks. There's really a lot of big fights every month, really. You know, you've this month, you've got Joshua versus Ngannou. Next month, Haney versus Garcia. May, Fury Usyk and Canelo. So we've got a good couple of months ahead of boxing that we are going to be able to talk about. A lot of big fights coming up, and there's other fights in between. You know, you obviously have Kambosos versus Lomachenko coming up. I think that's in April. So we've a lot of good stuff to talk about to get us through the next few months, and that's just fights that have been announced. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some coming out of the woodworks in the next couple of weeks. So always a lot to talk about. We'll always be talking about it here, as you know. I'll leave it there, people. If you could, smash the like button, hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Try and get to 17k. I'd love to, hopefully, maybe, fingers crossed, get there by the end of March, and then it's onwards to 20. Yeah, I know, 20k, crazy. But I'll leave it there. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could, hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. And for now, people, I will talk to you. Peace.